Sanbanani, Dumelang Malweni, welcome to the show. This is your platform as a young person. Uzgande ikila expressions it is. Well, almost every year, Mbukeli, when the academic year begins, we see protests in different universities across the country. Students, be it its accommodation, its funding, or even outstanding fees. Well, recently, students from different universities blocked off roads with burning tires, saying most students had not received their allowances, while some had been recently defunded from the NSFAS scheme. Well, and
of course, in South Africa, it's great to have you with us right here on Expressions. Well, that is most certainly true in Akolosa because a group of students from the Tshwane University of Technology marched along the streets of the Pretoria CBD, voicing, of course, the frustrations over the National Student Financial Aid Scheme's direct funding system. Even in other provinces, Free State Police have confirmed that they did arrest by 14 University of the Free State students following protests at the university's Bloemfontein campuses. Now, of course, these protests have affected learning processes in most campuses. And as in Kubi expressions, I mean, we really had to put it back to you as Umdomcha. We asked the young people if do they think that this new payment system really works. Now with how NSFAS is rendering its services. And this is what they had to say.
I think this new process of NSFAS should be dismissed as it's so unfair. And I think students should continue to strike.
In the way, Mali for the past years has been okay because Mali can get directly to the student's account. But now, since there are changes, I think it's going to be very difficult.
First of all, I got my funds super late, which was a few months of struggle, honestly. But besides that, they gave us a 150 Rand increase for the year. But now all of that is being taken back with bank charges.
A scam, that's the word I can find that actually makes better sense because the charges first are like way too much, and when you don't have the card, when you're actually using the virtual card, the charges are more than that. So it's actually at the end of the month, you actually get lesser money.
It's kind of unfair to get funded initially and then get defunded along the way because then you're left stranded and you don't know what to do with your school fees and all that. So I think they should have found a way to communicate better.
My roommate actually, she lost her dad last year and had to pay most of her rent and tuition this year because of some documents issue with NSFAS. But she's fully deserving of funding. And if she didn't have that support, then how would she have done that? So I think there's a lot of administrative issues going on, and it is affecting us.
As a student, for me, I feel like it's the money that I get now. Before they actually increased the allowances, I actually get lesser money than way back before they actually increased it. So yeah, it's too much because you have groceries and sometimes you have to travel.
It has a lot of charges, and the money that they're giving us, it's small. It's already, so now we have to charges on top of that.
First and foremost, you can't study on an empty stomach. You need to go to swim, then you can study.
Well, we can't study if we're hungry. We have to eat.
Most certainly, well, interesting views from young people there on the street. A lot of them really saying that they are unhappy with the new payment system. And now to find out more about the students' outcry, we are joined now by Mxolisi Manana, who is the SRC president of University of Johannesburg, who is a student representative. And of course, Njabulo Sibeko also joins us, and Yenake, he is the president of the University of Pretoria. President gentlemen and lady, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, thank you.
I mean, I'm going to start with you, Njabulo. So we understand that some of the students were defunded by NSFAS. I mean, walk me through how perhaps from your perspective you think this came about, and how did it affect the actual students?
Well, in terms of the defunding of students, we had countless meetings with the NSFAS. I think the first round of defunding happened in May and then again in July, so during exams and after exams. And NSFAS alleges that it's because SARS came back to them with information late, because every student has to go through a verification process, and this process at SARS took too long and only happened just recently after they had consolidated all their data and all the information. And halfway through the year, then students are said, you know what, and like, you're not really supposed to be here because you don't meet the minimum threshold with it, which is 350,000, or you have certain documents that you didn't submit initially, but they were able to fund you from Jan until now, even with those supporting documents. So it's a bit unusual in terms of the method that they use and how exactly they could get to such a rationale halfway through the year.
So I would assume that by the sentiments that you just shared, when as the president of the University of Pretoria, you stand with the students that indeed NSFAS did a wrong thing by that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think at UP we have nearly 1,000 students that were defunded by NSFAS, so no more food, no more rent, no more transport money, and we have to do now our level best on our side to try and fill in those gaps, knowing very well that these students are deserving of funding, but even when they do appeal, it's going to take another 2-3 months, you know. So we have to slot in where we can, help with accommodation, help with food, help with transport as well.
Yeah, I'll most certainly get to that countermeasures that you are doing as the SRC. But let me come to you now, Nhlonipho. As a student representative, of course, we had there from the young people really talking about the fact that this money is not enough. So NSFAS introduced a new payment system called E-zaga. Some students were against the new payment system. Perhaps do you know the reason as to why that may be the case?
NSFAS introduced what is called direct payment system. And then there were a few service providers that were appointed. That includes Noroko, E-zaga, Co-invest, and Tenatech. So in these are different service providers. And what they've been doing is that they did not... their bank charges are different. Some are very exorbitant, right? So their system is not standardized. So when NSFAS says that we're introducing a direct payment, it means that it wants to introduce a system where all students are going to get money at the same time. Because the reason that SABC has pushed for a direct payment system is because in the years, universities will pay students in April, in May, allowances. So that is then when SABC, I think in 2018, they called for a direct payment system. We do support the direct payment system. However, we do not support how it is carried out. And we think that these service providers, some of them are very incompetent, and hence we're having all these issues of exorbitant charges and payments that come in late and that don't come.
All right, so I hear you that you're saying when as SABC, SABC, you are supporting this E-zaga new system, which is direct payments.
It's not a E-zaga. E-zaga is a service provider.
Okay.
Yes. What we're supporting is direct payment, that NSFAS must standardize the payments to students so that they come in at the same time compared to others getting their allowances only in May.
Yeah, because...
That's what we're saying.
Because I would assume that, honestly, there's a lot of backlog happening with students not actually receiving that money, but we'll touch on that a little bit later on. Now, I mean, there was, you know, Skosana, who is the spokesperson of the NSFAS, actually said something here. I want to quote him. He said, "We must strengthen our system by cross-referencing the information that we were getting to access the eligibility of the applicants." Now, NSFAS says basically from an investigation done by the Special Investigating Unit that over 5 billion rand was paid to an estimated 4,000 students who were actually not supposed to get that money for funding. That was since 2017. Is it perhaps wrong that NSFAS tries to strengthen their systems to avoid fraud?
No, of course, we strongly understand the investigative unit on its measures and its call for universities to pay back money that was not allocated to students. And I can attest that in the University of Johannesburg, the repayment process, whereas money that was paid to universities by NSFAS, it started way before the SIU started speaking about its investigative processes that they have run. The payment process, the repayment process rather, started in January 2022 in the University of Johannesburg. And by September of last year, an approximate, or rather this year, an approximate 311 million was paid back by the Chief Financial Officer of the university back to NSFAS headquarters. So we completely understand the issue of repayments, but we are entirely against all other measures that have been taken by NSFAS to cause the chaos that is in our campus.
But Nkolisi, understand me here and maybe shed some light to our viewers at home. So you are saying that you don't fully agree with the chaos that is being caused by this and whatever that NSFAS introduced, amongst other things. But one would beg to differ with that, because then it would mean that NSFAS is not taking accountability. I asked you a question and I said that NSFAS is trying to strengthen their systems to avoid fraud. So do you think then you are supporting fraud, that it should continue, if you're saying you are against the other things?
No, look, we are not against, we are against fraud. We are not in support of fraud. But we are saying the manner in which NSFAS is running its business, it's a cause for concern in the higher education sector, not only in universities, but also in TVET sector. But of course, we are representing universities, and maybe we should stick to that. We're saying that in the University of Johannesburg, as I've indicated, the repayment process has started. And we're saying that our doors are open should NSFAS or SIU continue with its investigations. They should come to the University of Johannesburg. They should continue with investigations. But what we are against is the process and the approach that NSFAS is taking.
All right, okay. All right, I think we'll continue with this very important conversation, because particularly I want to get to, you know, that manifesto that we were talking about before on air, that now as a UP, as UJ, and also as a student representative, perhaps what is that the demographic people that you represent actually stand for? What do they want? But for now, we need to quickly go to an ad break. Stay with us right on Expressions.
Welcome back. You are still tuning into your #1 youth show, Apakunqa Phambili. SABC 1 Expressions is the name of the show. We are, of course, talking about the NSFAS crisis faced by students apha eMzantsi Afrika. Enkqubeni yethu ke namhlanje siyabuza apho ekhaya njengomntu omtsha ukubana, is the new NSFAS system of distributing funds really benefiting the students? Kuthiwa ke a number of students were defunded, causing some of them to be kicked out of their accommodations. The protests have been happening across the country, have greatly affected the students in many different ways. Well, joining us right now is another student that was affected by the recent strike, Donald Mkhwanazi. Donald, welcome to Expressions, all right?
Thank you so much to the viewers of Expressions. And yeah, it's like that. We're affected as students. But to put it clear to the NSFAS management and to the country, we're not really fighting the new systems of fighting corruption. Just that how they've done this whole thing is like it's raising red flags. So that's why we are so angry at how they've done all of these things. And it's really affecting us, and our future is really at stake here. As we're speaking, the students have been evicted out of arrest. As I speak right now, I'm coming from a student, helping a student who was evicted over the weekend in an accommodation where I'm from. That student was told to pay the remaining, all the months that NSFAS was supposed to pay for accommodation, but NSFAS never paid for those months, and now that student is defunded. It's a UJ student, and now she was told to go, and you can just imagine how she's feeling right now.
It's really angering, and it seems like NSFAS nangendlela aqhuba ngayo akanimameli ningabafundi, because recently, I mean, students from the University of Pretoria, I mean, not Pretoria, every state, they protested, and it is confirmed that 14 were arrested. Ingaba mhlambe niziva njani ngendlela urhulumente ahandlisha ngayo this matter?
No, NSFAS thinks they're in charge. They think they are untouchable. and with how we are raising our concerns. Because it's not like tonight SAUS will just release a statement and say, let's go and protest. No, this thing follows from a whole lot of discussions held with NSFAS. Say, these things, like it's happening like this. So can you please take this direction? Because we represent students. So now if then you decide to be ignorant towards such issues, then we'll take it to the streets. And the way NSFAS is handling this whole issue, it tells a lot about how our system is, because they're failing on the job. The management, all of them, they're failing. We've been saying Blade himself must vacate office, because how he's been handling this whole thing. Right now, I saw their press briefing. It's like they're shifting the blame. And institutions and NSFAS are playing Mickey Mouse. So you call NSFAS, they say it's UJ. You call UJ, you say NSFAS. Then students, you are stranded. And if you call them right now, I can tell you'll wait for more than 2 hours. And then for you to get them at least their attention, you must go to Twitter. So we don't all have Twitter. And Twitter is not really a platform where we should raise our issues and then they respond.
I mean, it seems like it's really a blame game, and taking it from the streets, you really cannot study when you are hungry. And you are sharing this, that one of the students had to pay a whole amount of 27,000. And you find that some students, they are actually dependent on NSFAS. They don't have any other option. How would you say it has affected you personally as a student?
Me personally, I've been defunded, by the way. And the reason is that I've reached the number of years that NSFAS has to fund me for which it's wrong. They're incorrect. So I'm currently appealing. But also there's also a case I'm also attending. There's a student who was supposed to receive the first batch of Naroko dispensement of the allowances. That student, even today, 1,000 is gone. No one can account for that 1,000. When she calls Naroko, those agents, like they're just giving her a bad attitude. They're saying, no, we'll receive that money, blah, blah, blah. Even today, 1,000 is gone, and she just received her second batch of allowances. That 1,000, where is it? No one knows. And to give you a background story of that student who was evicted over the weekend, that student was funded by NSFAS. She qualifies. But now they're saying, no, we're not, your mother is earning more than 350,000 annual. But now that student, her mother was retrenched back in 2020. So they are saying that her mother has money and everything, and that money is only from 2020, not now. So she qualified for NSFAS. Why do we defund, especially in the middle of the year? But that shouldn't a guy. Like, how do you expect good results from institutions, from this system of high education and learning when you're doing such things, like acting barbaric, and now it's a problem. It's what we should actually fight for. If now we're saying all institutions to the streets, all institutions must go to the street. Not only a few VETs and UJ and UP, but all institutions, because right now we're fighting the establishment, I can tell you.
Donald, this is an outcry for many students out there. So you being here, you're actually the voice of the voiceless. Thank you so much for joining us. Right, Tim Bukeliwam, we continue with the discussion. Make sure that you do interact with us on our social media platforms. What do you have to say about today's discussion? Abafundi, Sinqabeleleni. Right now, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Abafundi basezikhungweni zemfundo ephakeme abanganeme bamashele ezindlini zombuso ePitoli nasemahhovisi omnyango wemfundo ephakeme okuyokwethula uhlu lwezikhalo malungana nokuhoxiswa kwesibonelelo sokuxhasa abafundi se-NSFAS. Iningi labafundi likhala ngokuthi imbangela yokungaxhaswa kwabo ayinaso isisekelo esizwakalayo. Ngaleyo ndlela abafundi bafuna ungqongqoshe wemfundo ephakeme uDokotela uBlade Zimande aphume nesixazululo kulolu daba. Kuze kube manje izingxoxo zokuxazulula lenkiyankiya zisaqhubeka.
Interesting insight there produced by our producer, Azaria Koza. Thanks very much. Well, welcome back. We're still talking about the National Student Financial Aid Scheme's recent crisis and how the new payment system is affecting the students. Now, NSFAS recently introduced a new payment system called E-zaga, which will assist in distributing the funds to deserving students. And this has unfortunately sparked a turmoil in the higher education system. Now, that is the conversation that we are having, Namhlanje and Kubeni, and I'm still joined by my guest. I think let me start with you, Ntlonipho. So we understand, I just want to play the devil's advocate here for a second. We understand that we're at the peak of the academic year. So do you think perhaps this system was introduced at the wrong timing? Because mhlawumbi bekumele ba introduced at the beginning of the year so that students don't get to be stranded without funding media?
Definitely. We believe that this process was introduced abruptly. They're supposed to be introduced at the beginning of the year. And even in that case, students should be allowed to appeal, because we understand that there are students who are deserving but fell victim to these investigations and defunding. So they should also allow a process for students to appeal before they can defund them and deny them allowances and whatnot. Okay. And those students who are found guilty to have voluntarily and actively defrauded the system, then they should pay that money. Yes, they should pay the money.
Njabulo, quickly, let me just come to you. So apparently some students were informed overnight that they're going to be cut from the NSFAS funding. Perhaps, what do you think of the communication process between NSFAS and the students, just briefly?
The communication between NSFAS and students is absolutely non-existent. The website that NSFAS uses to primarily communicate with students is a website that works, I don't know when the weather is, how sunny. The whole process of defunding was a decision that was communicated by the university to our students to say, hey, by the way, please check your portal. There seems to be something that's changed. And when they do check the portal, whether it's today or when it actually works 3 days later, they find out that they were defunded. And some of them have reasons of missing documents, but when they try to appeal, there is no option to submit any documents you're missing. Some of them have issues of exceeding the 350 income. But like the comrade stated, that it's because 2020, their parents used to work at a job that allowed them to meet the threshold. But the recent updates or the developments within that student's family has changed. And NSFAS saying SARS sent information halfway through the year is false, because we know that these students, most of these students, are not affected by things that came this year. It's a death that happened last year, a retrenchment that happened 2 years ago. And that's the trend that we're seeing from this.
Yeah, so they're not taking accountability for the fact that something transpired years ago. They still assume that it's still one process, basically, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, Donald there with Colossa was saying that they'll take it to the streets. And also, this is a response from NSFAS City. An investigation of the complaints will be conducted, and where the allegations are proven true, appropriate action will be taken. So perhaps from your perspective as the SRC president, Yase University of Johannesburg, how do you think this should be resolved?
Look, let me start by saying that when students take to the streets, it's not a cosmetic exercise. It means that for many reasons, we can no longer breathe. So we're saying that we don't have to take to the streets. We don't have to air our views on these platforms for the minister to respond to us. But we're simply saying that in the communications between NSFAS, DHET, and our universities, the minister must take charge of the sector that is collapsing. The minister must take charge of NSFAS that has put students in a very compromising situation.
In a very compromising situation, and also in a dire one. Well, unfortunately, because of time, we're going to have to love and leave it there. Hopefully, something will be done out of this. And hopefully, the minister will actually act on it. Well, those were my guests, and Namhlanje joining us as we really unpack this NSFAS crisis of the new payment system that apparently most students are not approving, Kolo.
Oh, yes, and as Expressions, we pride ourselves for giving you, as a young person, a platform for you to express yourself, Galona Mba. We hope that it will build a better South Africa. On the ones and twos, the Suga is standing by.